Okay. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to learn the dinim of the 9 days, and then, if we have time, we'll learn Tanya also. I just want to give an introduction to these laws of the 9 days, and that is as follows. When the Gemara speaks about the laws of mourning over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara only talks about the week of Tisha B'Av. It's called Shvua Shechol by Tisha B'Av, the week of Tisha B'Av. That's as far as the Gemara is concerned. Yet, nevertheless, the poskim bring down that there are people that are machmer certain laws for the 3 weeks, like we discussed last time. And then you have the 9 days, starting from the Chodesh Av through the day after Tisha B'Av, 1 o'clock. And then you have in Halacha, Shavua Shechol by Tisha B'Av, the week of Tisha B'Av. And then you have another concept in Halacha that's called Zayin Av, the 7th of Av. Now, what happened on the 7th of Av, why it's stricter than all the other days, is like we learned in Shavasar B'Tammuz, they broke through the walls of Yerushalayim on the 17th of Tammuz. On the 7th of Tammuz, the Gemara says, they went into the Beis Hamikdash and started messing it up. On the 9th in the afternoon is when they lit the Beis Hamikdash, and the Beis Hamikdash burnt from the 9th Tisha B'Av in the afternoon through the 10th. So therefore, in Halacha, there's 3 stages of mourning, which is all customary, by the way. You have the 3 weeks that we learned. You don't listen to music, you don't get married, you don't take haircuts. Then you have the stricter laws, the laws of the 9 days. Stricter than that is the week of Tisha B'Av. This year, because Tisha B'Av is Sunday, there is no week of Tisha B'Av. Okay, if Tisha B'Av would be on a Wednesday, so then from Sunday to Wednesday is the week of Tisha B'Av. But this year, because Tisha B'Av is Sunday, it's not Shabbos pushed off to Sunday. It's Sunday, is the 9th of Av. So therefore, there is no week of Tisha B'Av this year, but there are certain dinim that are stricter from the 7th of Av on that we'll soon discuss. Okay? Now, generally speaking, the Gemara says that from once the month of Av comes in, Mema'atim b'simcha, you have to lessen joy. It's not a good luck time. It's not a mazel dika time for the Jewish people the whole month of Av. And therefore it's brought down. Because it's not a good luck time. Just like Adar, the Gemara says, is a very good luck month for the Jews. Av is a very bad luck month for the Jews. So it says if you have a lawsuit against a non-Jew, try to postpone it until after the month of Av, or at least until after Tisha B'Av. If it's against another Jew, it doesn't matter because you're both Jewish. It's bad luck for both of you. So I'll equal it out, I guess. And therefore, there's certain laws of mourning that apply in the 9 days that didn't apply in the 3 weeks. For instance, during the 9 days, you shouldn't purchase like silver or expensive things of simcha, not the things that you need. I mean, like you need a person's car died and they need a car, you can buy a car during the 9 days also. But I'm saying if you're buying things that you don't need really, you're just buying it because they're good things. So you should wait until after Tisha B'Av to buy it, unless if it's a very big sale, then Halacha says you could buy it, but don't use it until after Tisha B'Av. Okay? Now, what's the law of cutting nails? Hair already we learned you can't cut hair for the whole 3 weeks. Cutting nails is permitted during the 9 days. Even if for Shabbos, you could also cut your nails. Okay? It says the week of Tisha B'Av is better not to cut your nails. But again, doesn't apply this year. So bottom line, this year, you're allowed to cut your nails during the 9 days. You're allowed to cut your nails for this Friday, for Shabbos. Next Friday, you can cut your nails. It's not a problem. In fact, just this applies more to rabbis than anything else. But this Shabbos is Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. So there's different customs. What Haftarah do you say? Normally, you say the Haftarah of Rosh Chodesh. But our custom and most customs are, no, you say the Haftarah of Shimud Dvar Hashem, which is for the 3 weeks, and we add the first and last pasuk of Rosh Chodesh. Okay, next. Home improvements. I'm not talking about things that broke that you need to fix. But for instance, remodeling, wallpapering, painting, all those types of things that are not needed that because something broke and you need to fix it. Just pleasurable things like you shouldn't build a vacation home. You shouldn't build a pleasure building. The wallpapering, decorate what?
What about safety for the pool? Because insurance doesn't let you.
Well, I'll come to there in a minute.
Thank you.
Painting, wallpapering. Again, these things are things that are not necessities. They're more luxury and they cause simcha, so they shouldn't be done. But if it's building for a mitzvah, for instance, you want to build a shul, a mikveh, or how the halacha says a fence around the roof or a fence around the pool, which is a mitzvah to build a fence because it could be dangerous, God forbid. So those types of buildings of mitzvah are allowed during the 9 days. Okay, that's not a problem. So somebody has a pool, they want to build a fence around the pool, that they're allowed to do. Now, what happens if a non-Jew started painting your home before the 9 days? And now they're in the middle of the job in the 9 days. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, the best thing is give him a few bucks and tell him to come back after the 9 days. If that won't work because he'll get another job and then he'll forget about you, so then because he started before the 9 days and he didn't finish the job, so then you're allowed to continue doing it during the 9 days. The same thing, you're not allowed to do planting for pleasure. Like you can't plant flowers during the 9 days. You can't plant trees during the 9 days because they're not necessities. All these things are aspects of simcha, and therefore those are not allowed to be done during the 9 days. The next thing, which is very practical then, is starting from, well, this year Shabbos, you're allowed to eat meat and drink wine. But normally from Rosh Chodesh of, okay, now this year Rosh Chodesh is Shabbos, so Shabbos you're allowed to eat meat and drink wine. But if it wouldn't be Shabbos, Friday night, all the laws of the 9 days apply. Okay? So now you're not allowed to eat meat or drink wine during the 9 days. Okay? Why? What's the reason why you're not allowed to eat wine and meat? Because the Gemara has an expression, Ein simcha ela beyayin, ein simcha ela bevasar. Wine and meat cause joy. And during the 9 days, we want to minimize the concept of joy. And therefore, during the 9 days, we actually don't drink wine or eat meat. Now, on Shabbos, obviously, no problem at all drinking wine and eating meat. Even if somebody brings Shabbos in early, okay, so for them, they already accepted Shabbos, even though it's day outside, they are allowed to eat meat and drink wine because for them, it's Shabbos already, okay? So for them, it's Shabbos. The question about swimming, we're going to come to soon. So let's wait with that for a minute. Now, when are you allowed to eat meat and drink wine during the 9 days? So Halachos says if there's a su'udas mitzvah, for instance, there's a bris, pidyon haben, those are all a siyum of a mesechta, even though in Chabad the custom is that even by a siyum, our custom is not to eat meat anyway. There is an inyan of making ending of tractates of Gemara during the 9 days, but Chabad custom, I'm not talking about the camps or the situations like that, but in our circles, we don't use that as a heter to drink wine and eat meat. Now, what happened? Now, this wine, by the way, includes wine and grape juice. It also includes adding wine to cooking. let's say you're cooking a meat, whatever, a roast, and you want to add wine, or you're cooking chicken, baking chicken, you want to add wine, that's also a no-no. That also you're not allowed to do. Now, what happens if somebody, for health purposes, needs to eat? They're allergic to fish, they can't eat that, whatever it is. So ideally, they should ask a shaila what they should be doing. But the halacha is, if you can get away with chicken, it's better than meat. In other words, try to eat chicken, because chicken is less simcha, it's less joy than meat is. So therefore, if you already have to eat fleishiks, then you should eat chicken. But it says in halacha, from the 7th of Av on, you should preferably not eat chicken either. Okay? Now, if somebody is sick, obviously it's a different din, and they should ask a shah, but if possible, they should eat chicken and stop from the 7th day. Now, you're allowed to cook pariv in a meat container, in a meat pot, even if the meat pot was used that day, as long as it's clean. In other words, you can't eat meat. I'll give you an example. Somebody called me today with a question. There's a restaurant that they fry French fries and falafel and meat or chicken in the same oil. Okay? They use the same oil for meat, and obviously not fish, I hope, and French fries and falafel balls, whatever, or any of those types of things. That French fries you're not allowed to eat during the 9 days. And not only that, that French fries will make you 6 hours of fleishiks, because you're cooking it in the same oil where there's a taste of meat. So it makes it mamish fleishik. By the way, this has nothing to do with the 9 days. You go into a restaurant, okay, and you think you're buying pariv French fries or things like that, you better ask them in the store if they make French fries in the same oil as fleishiks, even if it's not the same time together. But if they're making French fries in oil where they fried schnitzel or meat or whatever, those French fries are mamish fleishik that you have to wait 6 hours for. So people have to be very aware, or the opposite. If you go to a milchik, a pizza shop, which is milchiks, and they fry French fries in the same oil where they fry milchiks, so then the French fries are milchik. People have to keep that in mind. So coming back to the 9 days, that if you're allowed to cook a pariv dish like fish in a meat pot, even if it was used that day, as long as the meat pot is clean. You can't eat a dish that has meat or wine in it, but you're allowed to eat pariv food that was cooked in a meat utensil. Okay, now a siyum, I'm not going to go to whatever, a person that needs to listen to a siyum, it has to be in a tractate of Gemara. You can't just learn Pirkei Avos and without all the mefarshim and make a siyum, and it doesn't work. Okay. Next din of the 9 days, and this people have to know beforehand. Cleaning and changing clothing. Okay. Just like a mourner is not allowed to do fresh clothing and all that. During the 9 days, it's forbidden to clean garments or to put on a freshly laundered or clean garment, which means as follows. To clean a garment during the 9 days, even if you're planning to use it after Tisha B'Av, is forbidden. It's forbidden. Okay, so therefore you can't clean garments. We'll discuss soon a case where you would be allowed to clean a few garments under certain circumstances. But generally speaking, you're not allowed to clean garments during the 9 days, even if it's through a non-Jew, even if you're going to put it, to use it after the 9 days. Now, another din is, we're coming to laundered sheets and towels in a second. Okay. I'll give it a chance for questions later, but let's first discuss the dinim, and then, because a lot of these questions we're going to be discussing. So you're not allowed to put on freshly laundered garments during the 9 days. Now, according to many opinions, it applies even to underwear. You cannot wear freshly laundered underwear. Other people, and this is the way the minig is in our circles, that underwear doesn't have to be fresh. Even if it's freshly laundered, you're allowed to put it on. Okay, which includes socks and underwear. Those things are allowed to be put on. But other clothes, you cannot wear freshly laundered garments during the 9 days. So what do you need to do? Before the 9 days, this is what it says in Shulchan Aruch. That's what I'm telling you what it says in Shulchan Aruch. In Shulchan Aruch it says, before the 9 days, you need to try on your freshly laundered garments. Or, by the way, freshly ironed or pressed garments, even if they're not washed during the night before. But if they were freshly ironed, they're also called freshly laundered garments during the 9 days. So what somebody needs to do is try on clothing that they're planning to wear during the 9 days. So let's say, talking about a man, let's say you need 5 shirts, because Shabbos it doesn't count. Shabbos you can wear freshly laundered clothing. But let's say, for argument's sake, for the 9 days you need 5 shirts. So before Tisha B'Av, you put on a shirt, wear it for half an hour. Before the 9 days. I'm sorry. Before the 9 days. Before the 9 days, meaning before this Shabbos. Okay? You need to try on a garment, a shirt for half an hour, change it, put on another shirt for half an hour, another shirt for half an hour, as many as you need. Same thing, pants, dresses. If they're freshly laundered, you need to put them on, according to most opinions, like for half an hour before the 9 days, and then you put it away, and then you could use it during the 9 days because it's not freshly laundered. That din, by the way, applies to towels and linen. Okay? Now, linen is stricter, that even though for Shabbos you're allowed to put on fresh linen, you're allowed to put on fresh clothing for Shabbos, but you cannot make the bed with fresh linen. Not this Friday, it's not the 9 days yet. Next Shabbos, you're not allowed to put on fresh linen during the 9 days, even for Shabbos. Clothing, towels, you're allowed to use Shabbos freshly laundered things. Okay? Now, and therefore you're not allowed to wash garments during the 9 days, and you have to wear you're not allowed to put on freshly laundered garments during the 9 days. So before the 9 days, whatever a person's planning to wear, they should try it on for half an hour, put it away, and then they'll have it for the rest of the 9 days. The same thing applies to handkerchiefs, which very few people use today, towels, tablecloths. Now, another thing I should have mentioned before, which is applicable, not this Shabbos, okay, not this Shabbos, but for next Shabbos. You're not allowed to eat meat or drink wine until Shabbos. Right? During the week, you're not allowed to drink wine or eat meat. So when a woman is cooking, again, this Friday is not the 9 days yet, so the din doesn't apply. You can do whatever you want Friday. Next Friday, which is Friday in the 9 days, the day before Erev Tisha B'Av, when you cook food for Shabbos, you have to be careful about tasting the food. If you're making a cholent, or you're cooking chicken, or meat, or whatever it is, and you're making a cholent, and you want to see, does the cholent need salt, or pepper, hot sauce, whatever, you want to know what does the cholent need. So you have to be careful. Normally, most of the time it's the women, they'll taste the food to see what they need. So Halachos says like this: if you need to, you could taste the food but spit it out, because then you don't make a bracha on it either. Okay, you eat a little bit, you don't eat, you taste it with your tongue and you spit it out, then that's not called tasting, and that's why you don't even make a bracha on it. So that you would be allowed to do. But to taste the food properly and swallow it in a way that you make a bracha, then you don't do it. Now, another interesting thing. What happens if somebody forgot us the 9 days, and they have a hot dog in front of them. They forgot us the 9 days, and they made a bracha on the hot dog, or a piece of meat, or a piece of chicken, or chicken soup. You're about to eat chicken soup during the 9 days. You forgot it for a second. You forgot it was the 9 days. And now you made a bracha. So the halacha is, you taste the drop, because you made a bracha. We don't want to make a bracha in vain. So therefore, if by mistake you made a bracha, you taste a little bit, and that's it. On a fast day, by the way, there's an argument in halacha, but the halacha is we don't. If you made a bracha, you just say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'Elvad. You don't eat the food, because that's halacha. Not to eat on a fast day. Not to eat during the 9 days is a custom. So it's a very strong custom. It's a very powerful custom. But still, if you made a bracha, making a bracha in vain is a worse aveda, so to speak. So then you would taste mamish a drop, just to get that it shouldn't be a bracha in vain. Now, what happens if somebody runs out of clothes? Or, halacha gives the classic example, children's clothing. Children get their clothing very dirty, especially if they're in camp or running around. And you don't have 300 pairs of clothing for them. So the din is, and this year again, there's no week of Tisha B'Av, so it's easier. Halacha says you're only allowed to wash what you must have for them. In other words, if right at the end of the week, the kid has no clothes, and until after Tisha B'Av, let's say it's 3 days, you can't put up a whole load of wash. And you say, well, the machine's working already anyway, let me just dump the clothes in there. You're only allowed to wash what you must have for the rest of the 9 days. What happens if a man or woman run out of clothes? The clothes got dirty, just don't have enough, or they didn't realize, they forgot it was the 9 days and all that. So again, because there's no week of Tisha B'Av, you're allowed to wash only the clothing that you must have until the 9 days. Only wash the clothing that you must have for the 9 days. Buying clothing during the 9 days is not allowed. Even if it's everyday clothing, you don't, unless if it's a very, very big sale, then you could buy during the 9 days. So I want to caution people, because there's a shaila in halacha, Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to wear leather shoes. So what happens if somebody realizes 2 days before Tisha B'Av, it's already the 9 days, and they realize, I don't have sneakers. I don't have non-leather shoes. What am I supposed to do? So the Moshe Feinstein holds, in that case, and that's the way they paskin today, that you're allowed to buy non-leather shoes that you need for Tisha B'Av. But ideally, people should remember before Shabbos, this week Shabbos, when the 9 days begin, that just to make sure that you have your sneakers, your non-leather shoes, and to make sure that you have, what you need for the rest of the 9 days. For Shabbos, you're allowed to change everything for Shabbos. And it's interesting. In Shulchan Aruch, and this is the way they acted, not the Chassidim, in the time of the Alter Rebbe, the Vilna Gaon, that era, on Shabbos Chazain, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, they did not wear their Shabbos clothing. They wore their weekday clothing as a sign of mourning. According to Kabbalah and Chassidus, and the Arizal writes clearly that, and the Alter Rebbe brings it down. The Alter Rebbe says, you don't do anything different on this Shabbos than you would any other Shabbos. And if anything, it says you're supposed to have more simcha on the Shabbos of the 9 days, because you don't want to show any public mourning in any way whatsoever on Shabbos, because Shabbos is above the concept of mourning. Okay, now, you're not allowed to sew new garments on during the 9 days. In fact, according to most opinions, embroidery, weaving, knitting, those things. So ideally, you don't do it. Nothing is forbidden. Some poskim say you could do it, but the minig is that all these like needlepoint and knitting that people do for a hobby or they want to make a garment, you don't do during the 9 days. Because again, that's the type of sewing you have to do with the. Now, if that's the person's livelihood, like for instance, if a person has a Jew has a cleaners, he's allowed to stay open perfectly until the week of Tisha B'Av, but this year again it doesn't apply because he's catering to non-Jewish people, and that's okay. He has to make a living. There's a very interesting washing. Okay, about washing clothes. From a very important comment over here. No, because I got calls about that already, by the way. You can't wash a wig, a sheitel, during the 9 days. You can't set a sheitel during the 9 days. Oh, no, setting day, right, you could if you have to. But a sheitel, a wig, just for the record, is a garment. Therefore, during the 3 weeks, you're allowed to cut a sheitel even though you don't cut your hair, because a sheitel is not hair. A sheitel is a garment. Just like you can't wash any garment, you can't wash a sheitel either. Now, poskim write, when you speak about not washing a garment, what happens if you have a little dirt spot? You got a little dirt spot somewhere. So then the halacha is the dirt spot you're allowed to clean. You don't wash a whole garment, but if there's a little dirt spot, you could take a little bit of water and clean the dirt for that. Okay, friends, repairing garments, which means a button falls off, a hem fell down, or something, whatever. Okay, the halacha is that you're allowed to do during the 9 days. You can't sew new garments during the 9 days, but you're allowed to fix and repair garments that are torn that you need, basically. Okay, the next thing is like this. And this is probably the last thing. Then if there's questions, and then if we have time, we'll go to Tanya. Bathing for pleasure is forbidden during the 9 days, which means you're not allowed to swim. And that applies even to little kids, by the way. You have to ask a child, does it apply under 3 years old, over 3 years old? But generally speaking, even in cold water, you're not allowed to go swimming during the 9 days. If somebody has a health issue that they must swim, then they have to ask a shaila if they're allowed to or not. Now, I'm telling you what Halachos says, and I'm going to tell you what the practice is. You're only allowed to wash your hands, face, and feet in cold water, okay, is permissible during the 9 days. And during the 9 days, meaning you're only allowed to wash your hands, face, and feet in cold water. That's what Halachos says in Shulchan Aruch. Now, obviously, if a woman has to go to mikveh, or men who go to mikveh every day are allowed to go to mikveh during the 9 days also. Tisha B'Av not. The day of Tisha B'Av is forbidden like in Kippur, but until Tisha B'Av, a man that goes to mikveh every day is allowed to go to mikveh every day. If a woman needs to go to the mikveh, she can shower, bathe, whatever she needs to do for the mikveh, that is allowed. Now, the question is, I'm going to say what the practical din is, and that's it. Today, where people are what's called istanis, very meticulous, very fussy, okay, for lack of a better word. You know, in halacha, the Rambam brings down, by the way, in Shulchan Aruch brings it down, you should bathe once a week. That's what it says in Allah. You bathe once. The Rambam writes, you bathe, go to the bathhouse once a week to bathe. The pill today, people basically shower every day, okay, or almost every day. So the question is, what is during the 9 days? Am I not going to take a shower for the 9 days? And by the way, according to Shulchan Aruch, even Erev Shabbos, for Erev Shabbos, you can wash your hands, feet, and head in warm water. No soap. You can wash your hands, face, and feet in warm water. Okay, now let me explain to you the practical din today. And this is, again, ideally, a person should. Okay, if they feel dirty or they feel uncomfortable, they're allowed to take a quick shower. If they feel uncomfortable, halachically, they can take a quick shower, preferably quickly, not hot water, warm water, soap, minimal, whatever you need just to feel not dirty anymore. Okay? I mention this often, and I'm going to say it again in this class. Even if somebody needs to take a shower during the 9 days, you don't take a shower publicly. That means a man that goes to mikveh every day should not be taking a shower in the mikveh. You need to take a shower at home, and then go to the mikveh. Okay, you just can't knock off the law that says in Shulchan Aruch that you don't shower. So Allah says, if you need it, you take a quick private shower, and that's it, as quickly as you can. But as far as now, for Erev Shabbos, in the Chassidic world, this is the bus can bring down. In the Chassidic world, Chassidim took a regular shower Erev Shabbos for Shabbos, like they would a whole year. That was the minhag of Chassidim, and that's the minhag of Chassidim even today. That an Erev Shabbos, not the Shabbos, it's not the 9 days yet. I'm talking about next Shabbos. Men for Shabbos take complete shower like they would on a regular Erev Shabbos.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, now I'll take questions because we basically finished the main dinim. If anybody has questions about what we learned, the dinim of Tisha B'Av we're going to learn next Wednesday. Okay.
Rabbi, are we allowed to put on makeup during the day
During the
before?
9 days, you're allowed to use deodorant. You're allowed to put on makeup. You're allowed to do all that stuff.
Thank you.
Woman who shaves her legs is allowed to shave the legs. Okay, that's allowed even during the 9 days. Okay. Are there any other questions? Let me see what the chat's.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to double check when you said the warm shower, just a little soap. Was that also for next Friday, or just during the week and on Friday to take a hot?
Next Friday we take complete showers, hot water, whatever you want. During the week, if somebody takes a shower, what I'm saying is you don't sit in the shower or in a bath and have a good time.
Okay.
You need to be clean, so you're allowed to take a shower quickly, as quickly as you can, and just to be clean. That's all. It's not Kabbalah. It's a very simple thing. Bathing causes a person to have pleasure, which should be avoided during the 9 days.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it. Any other questions before we go to Tanya? Okay, let's go to Tanya.